Good evening, everybody. Tuesday evening, which means we have a question and answer session, and a few questions came in today, so we'll do our best to answer them.
Dear Ajahn, what is the most powerful chant to do when you are in a difficult situation?
I'm not sure there's one simple answer to that, because chanting can be a very personal thing. Some people don't like chanting at all, which may be understandable if you haven't been brought up in a Buddhist family or you're not familiar with chanting. It may just sound very strange to you. But people tend to find certain chants, Buddhist chants, resonate with them personally. When they chant, if they chant regularly, they'll tend to, it'll be a cause for positive emotions to arise, good feelings, maybe feeling of happiness, joy, feeling of peace, and also reminder of the teachings. And so for each person this may vary. A good standard one that many Buddhists will turn to when they want to calm their mind at a time of stress, or just as a regular practice to recollect the Buddha, is the chant, the recollection of the Buddha, Iti Piso Bhagava. Tonight we chanted it in English. Many people like to chant it in Pali, recollecting the qualities of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and sometimes just repeating the same chant over and over again is a way to develop firmness of mind, or bring up mindfulness and develop states of samadhi. And we shouldn't underestimate the value of chanting. It can be a very good meditation technique, just both to bring up mindfulness, set aside states of distraction, sleepiness, worry, focus our mind back onto the Dhamma. If you chant in Pali, often people find that actually brings more positive emotions, more stronger states of samadhi arise. But if you're new to chanting, often it helps to chant in English, or at least read from time to time the translation of the Pali chant, just to help you, remind you what you're chanting and the purpose of it, and the words themselves, what they mean, because that can help. It's part of the effectiveness of chanting, is that you're reminding yourself of the teachings of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and so on. When you're more familiar with a chant, you do it regularly, whether there's more chance that it will have a very powerful effect on your mind. And focus your mind, bring it to the present moment, cut through the distracted states, and you may not need to have the translation, you can just chant in Pali. So other than the chant Iti Piso Bhagava, the other chants people do are the paritas, your protective verses, most of which are coming from suttas, the words of the Buddha. They're not all, sometimes they're from commentaries or collections of teachings and reflections, but mostly they're coming from the suttas. And that's another thing that helps just to direct the mind to the Buddha and the words of the Buddha, which seem to have a very powerful effect on our mind, because they're just pointing to truth. They're very pure reflections on truth, and the truth has a certain power to it. Even some of the chants we do, we say, by the power of this truth, may I be free from suffering, free from danger, free from illness. And it's often at those times when we are afraid that we chant, but also we chant as part of our regular practice, just to recollect the Buddha, and also On auspicious occasions we chant as well. So you have to see what chant really resonates with you, brings up that sense of faith, positive emotions, piti and sukha, sense of joy, happiness. It could be a sutta, so many people like to chant a whole sutta, like the Dhamma Pavattana Sutta, because it's the first sutta, the first teaching the Buddha gave. So monks often quite like to chant that. Remember when Lumpur Blian used to come and stay here, he would chant it regularly. And if you chant a sutta like that, quite a long one, regularly, not only does it improve your mindfulness and your samadhi, because you have to learn the chant and recite it, but for those listening, it also is very inspiring. And so the Buddha encouraged us to remember the Dhamma, recite the Dhamma, and they say, the devas come to listen. So many people felt when Lumpur Blian chanted the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the devas were definitely there, because you have that sense of joy. I mean, you don't know for sure, but it seemed like that. Lumpur Man is famous for chanting suttas at night, sometimes for an hour or two. Lumpur Chop, another disciple of Ajahn Mun, he used to chant every evening on his own in the forest, but some of the monks in the monastery would be so inspired to hear him chanting, and it developed such a powerful energy, and they say the devas would come and listen to him chanting, that the monks would sneak out into the forest and quietly meditate next to his kuti, his hut in the forest, just to hear him chant and to get that good feeling that came listening to him chant. Of course, the best thing is of always have your own chant that you use regularly, and you'll develop an affinity with that, and then you can bring it up. Say if you are particularly stressed or distracted or sleepy. I mean, people find chanting is powerful when they're sleepy, to bring the mind to the present moment, cut through the sleepiness. If you get large numbers of people chanting together, every single chant becomes powerful. So if you go to Ajahn Chah's monastery in January during the retreat, when everyone is chanting together, thousands of monks, nuns, lay people, has a very inspiring effect just to listen to it and to participate in it. And say as a monk, we chant regularly on different occasions, and generally, the more people chanting, the better the feel. So if you say sometimes as a monk you go to an event where there's maybe 1,000 monks chanting the paritas, the verses of protection, and literally you feel like the roof of the building is going to come off. The energy is so powerful. So it's something very enjoyable to both participate in or just to listen to. So we chant when we pour Buddha statues. We make Buddha statues, we chant through that process. You go to the foundry, and as they're pouring the bronze, you chant the paritas. It's always a very inspiring occasion. And it's a very good preparation for meditation, other kinds of meditation as well, because it kind of clears your mind out from its more mundane, worldly thoughts and brings you to the Dhamma. Once went to a house blessing in Bangkok. In Thailand, you see people chant all the time, monks and laity, and it's Buddhist country. So this house had a very big compound, very big garden next to it. So they invited 500 monks, thinking of the time of the Buddha, where you read the sutras and it says 500 monks gathered. So 500 monks came together and we chanted the paritas. So that's an amazing thing. If you have your house blessed by 500 monks, you don't forget that. That's a lifetime's memory. You always feel happy remembering back to that occasion. So whatever chant you like, that's the powerful one. It could be the Metta Sutta, which we chanted tonight in English, or you could chant in Pali, a recollection of the Buddha, different paritas, or it could be a reflection, like, as monks we chant the 10 reflections of a samana or lay people, the 5 things to be reflected on or recollected every day, like, I'm of the nature to age, nature to sicken, nature to die, just to remind us of the basic truths of life. And that can be a very powerful chant to do regularly, because it becomes something that your mind turns to, and it reminds you of the truth when you may be caught up into some other attachments. Monks have lots of chants ready for different situations, so when the poisonous snake comes, we have a chant for that. In the fire season here, we have the quail's protection, we have a chant for warding off fire. We have chants for famine, chants for getting rain when there's a drought. The Ratana Sutta we chant. Down in Bodhipala Monastery in South Australia, where it's been very dry the last 10 years, they've been chanting the Chinnah Panchara Gatha every day at 4 p.m. for many months, and it seems to have paid off, and they've had the wettest winter there for many years. So there's different ways people use chanting to ward off fear of ghosts, fear of illness. So we have the Bojjhanga Paritta for warding off illness. Many occasions I can remember monks who've been struggling in one way or another, and they chanted and got through their struggles, whether it's fear of wild animals. So I quite often mention the story of the new monk who was walking through the forest at Dowdam on the Burmese border, which is like a jungle hermitage, and encountered a tiger coming the other way on a path, and it was a very narrow path, so he couldn't run away, he couldn't go around this tiger, he just froze. Because that's what you do when you meet a big tiger, you tend to freeze with fear, you're paralyzed with fear. But he wasn't completely paralyzed, because the fear was so strong his knees started to shake. He said his knees were banging together with fear, shaky legs. And the tiger just sat and watched him in a kind of a pose ready to pounce on him. So he was completely full of fear, this young monk. So after a while some wisdom arose, and he started to recite Iti Piso Bhagava. He thought of the Buddha and the protective power of recollecting the Buddha, because the Buddha did tell the monks, he said, if you're ever afraid and you don't know what to do, then recite Buddho or Iti Piso, remember the Buddha. So he did that, very wise at that time, and he said just by focusing his mind on those words, mindfulness arose, and he dispelled some of the confusion and fear that was overcoming him at that time, and that seemed to help. It helped him calm down. Maybe it had an effect on the tiger, because the tiger is just watching him, checking whether he's a threat. Animals tend to look at people as a threat, so the tiger is checking him out, sees this monk with knees knocking together, chanting Iti Piso. He probably decided he's not a threat. So after chanting Iti Piso for a while, the tiger starts to carefully walk past him, but they're on the side of a hill, so there's a very steep hill, and walking past him meant literally the tiger brushed past his shoulders. The tiger slowly walked beside the monk, and he could hear the breathing of the tiger. As the monk was chanting, he could hear the tiger breathing. And he could smell the tiger, because they're very smelly. They smell of death. They've eaten so many animals, killed so many animals, they smell really bad. And it moved past him on the mountainside very slowly. And it's dark, so it went behind him. He couldn't see it because he's behind him. So all he could cling to at that moment is the chant, Iti Piso Bhagava. He clings to that because he doesn't know what else to cling to. So you can use chanting like that as a meditation to hold your attention in the present moment. And now the tiger was behind him, again crouched, possibly waiting to pounce on him, but it didn't. So then what does he do? Well, he's chanting Iti Piso, and insight arose, light arose, vision arose, and he could realize, the path ahead is now free, the tiger's gone behind me. So he kept chanting iti piso, and he's got a little bit of hope now, so he starts to very slowly walk along the path in the way he was going before, because the tiger is behind him. And he doesn't know whether the tiger is going to follow him, but because the tiger's already moved past him, he thought, well, there's a good chance he's going in the other direction. So he's slowly walking, chanting iti piso bhagava arahang samma, keeping his mindfulness. And as he's getting further and further away from where he believes the tiger to be behind him, he starts to walk more quickly, and he chanted more quickly, so iti piso bhagava arahang. And after he got many meters away, he ran. And the tiger didn't follow him. The tiger disappeared into the night, so the monk was safe, and he got a good lesson in how powerful iti piso is as a chant to protect you at a moment of panic. So there are many, many stories like this of monks and lay people who have benefited from chanting when they in a desperate or worrisome situation. So something to use chants to help you both in meditation and to deal with stressful states of mind.
Dear Ajahn, what is the significance of chanting the Chinnah Panchara Gatha?
Similar to the last question, that's a particular chant. It's not a parita or a sutta as such. It's a chant that's a kind of an amalgamation of verses of recitation that has come. The history of it is a little bit vague because of in Asia there's not a lot of historical record after you go back a few hundred years, but what records we do have, it's a chant that came about or was developed as a chant probably by scholars, monks, scholars, written down verses which are recollecting all the 28 Buddhas that we know of from the scriptures, recollecting the Arahants from the time of the Buddha. So you'll see in that chant there's many names of Arahants you might be familiar with, like Sariputta, Moggallana, Anuruddha, Sivali, and so on. So it's recollecting the Buddhas, the Arahants, the qualities of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the power, the benefit of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And they think it first comes up in historical terms, I think in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, 400 or 500 years ago. There's some written evidence of it there, being chanted there in a slightly different form than it's chanted today. And because in those days the Burmese kingdom would invade and move into Thailand quite regularly, and there was also trade, it seems to have moved into Burma, being used there as well. So the Burmese chanted it. And then somehow it got across to Sri Lanka. So in those days there was some correspondence and movement in the Sangha between Thailand, Burma and Sri Lanka, all being Theravada Buddhist countries, sharing the same Tripitaka scriptures and practices. So in its more modern form it was found in Sri Lanka, and from Sri Lanka it came back to Thailand, back to Bangkok, where the sort of most famous monk who promoted and used this chant was Venerable Somdet Buddha Jan Do, who I don't know if you can see him on the side of me, this monk sitting there. Buddha Jan Do, Somdet Do, is a very famous household name monk in Thailand, even though he lived a couple of hundred years ago. He was teacher of Rama IV, Rama V, a great meditator, a scholar, a Tudong monk. He would go wandering in the forest. So he had many, many skills and abilities, and he's considered to be a bodhisattva on the way to becoming a Buddha one day in the future. So in Thailand he's greatly revered even after hundreds of years. His name is still known and revered, and he's somebody who chanted this chant, Chinnah Panchara Gatha. He, we believe, brought it over from Sri Lanka again, kind of, you might say, tidied it up, printed it, got it into the more modern chanting form that we chant here and other monasteries will chant. And particularly he's famous for using it when he blessed amulets. His amulets are very famous in Thailand as being very powerful blessed amulets, where he's blessed them in a ceremony where he's practiced meditation, developed samadhi, spread metta to these amulets and chanted the Chinnah Panchara Gatha. And he said, you know, it's like you chant this Gatha, the Chinnah Panchara Gatha, it's like putting the Buddha on your head. So it's like you're setting up your goal. The Buddha and Nibbana is what you're aiming for in life. It's the most important thing you have in life. So when you're chanting this, you're kind of inviting the goodness, the power of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha to you, to protect you from danger, illness, but also to bring your mental energies to recollect the qualities of the Buddha, the wisdom, the compassion, the peace, and to recollect Nibbana. So it's like wearing the Buddha on your head when you're chanting this. And then on other parts of your body, like on your shoulders, you have the other arahants. So they're all kind of on your head and shoulders there with you, protecting you. So you could say, well, that's just imagination. Well, yes, but then we can use different symbols and concepts in our practice. It's not wrong. As long as you're aware of what you're doing. So it's not like you're literally expecting the Buddha to be there sitting on your head, but you're recollecting the qualities of the Buddha as you chant. So in Thailand, this is a very well-known chant. People find it brings up a lot of strength of mind, positive energy to, particularly to deal with the challenges of life when you're working and you're tired or you're in debt or you're ill or there's some problem in your life. They chant Chinnah Panchara Gatha and they feel uplifted, mind is energized, as with other chants. So it's a very well-known, respected, revered chant. Auspicious chant in Thailand. It's not the exact words of the Buddha, but it's recollecting the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha, and many people find a great joy in chanting it. So you can try it out. It's in our chanting book. We chant it regularly. You can try it out if you're having a problem or something and you need to just calm your mind, focus your mind on solving your problem or getting through some difficulty, maybe it can help.
Dear Ajahn, with the lockdown easing, there are people who are still anxious and fear the virus as it impacts the body and one may fall ill. How do we overcome this fear and continue with our normal life? Is this fear because of our attachments and cravings to ourselves or not wanting to become?
Well, yes, it is. It's coming from our attachment, our identification with this body as self. Whether there's coronavirus out there or not, there's 101 other illnesses, the dangers from illness, injury, and then just aging. We're all getting older, and one day we've got to die. So again, this is why it's good to chant these chants, reflecting, I'm the nature to age, sicken, die. I've not gone beyond these things. They're normal. Because we tend to push away what we don't like into the back of our mind, suppress it, ignore it. So illness is one of those things we just don't like to think about. We don't like to think about our loved ones getting ill or ourselves getting ill. And yet it's normal, it's part of life. Coronavirus is just one reminder of that. But there's many other illnesses that people suffer from every day. And just solving the problems with coronavirus won't change that fact. So this is one of the reasons we practice the Dhamma, isn't it? To bring up the wisdom, the mindfulness, develop wholesome states of mind to deal with the basic fragility of life, the uncertainty of life. It's normal to feel insecure because it's an insecure world we live in, and this body is insecure. No one can guarantee good health, safety. It's impossible because the nature of the world is a conditioned place. We don't own it, we don't control it. And this is the very reason we practice the Dhamma, is to come to terms with that and to understand more deeply, say in the case of the body, well, what the body is. What is this body? It's a collection of elements that come together and they're fed, nourished by the food and drink we have and the air we breathe. But these elements are unpredictable. So one of the unpredictable things is we get subject to illness, catch diseases, things go wrong, the organs can go back wrong, and we can get viruses, bacteria, and then we've got injury as well. And it's also subject to aging. And that is just the truth of existence. So part of our mind says, I want to live forever, I want no pain, I want no illness, I just want to live forever, I want to look good, feel good. That's part of our becoming. We all desire the best possible outcome as far as this body goes. But it's impossible. So we're asking the impossible when we get caught into that way of thinking. So the Buddha encourages us to reflect daily on the impermanence of this body, to look after it, of course. So part of our practice is to try and feed it, look after it, clothe it, get medicines, get health care, and look after our body in the best way we can. But on the level of our view, the way our attitude towards it, we also have to be aware that it's vulnerable, fragile, and we can't guarantee against falling ill and getting old, and one day it has to die. It's the only one thing you know for sure when you're born, is that you will die. So these are reflections that you can bring up every day to adjust your expectations. So when you have good health, enjoy it. That's a blessing. But don't get lost in it, and don't become complacent and just expect good health to last forever, because that's impossible. So part of meditation is reflecting on impermanence, seeing the impermanence of the body, the changing nature of the body, feelings associated with the body, health, the nature of the body, the way it's a conditioned thing made up from elements. These are reflections and meditations we develop to develop correct view of this body. And this is what helps allay some of the anxieties, insecurities, because it's just normal to get ill. We don't want it, but when it happens, if we've been reflecting on it, we can accept it better. Whereas if we push that truth away, suppress it, push it away, ignore it, distract ourselves from it all the time, then of course it's a shock, and it brings up a lot of fear, aversion, whether it's our own illness or the illness of our loved ones. And we have to deal with a lot of extra stress, suffering, because our mind is not ready for that truth. And that can be as bad as the illness itself. Illness is one thing, but then the stress associated with it, the fear, the worry, can also be debilitating and make us ill again. We can get ill from stress. We can get ill from anxiety. So it's in our own interest to learn the Dhamma, practice mindfulness, reflect on the Dhamma, develop more insight into the condition and impermanent nature of this body, so that our mind is seeing the truth regularly. If you're with teachers who are teaching this all the time, like Ajahn Chah, he didn't have a lot of time for people's anxieties about health. If monks got ill, and often they could get quite serious illness like malaria or dysentery or some injury, and he'd go and see them, and he had compassion. He'd always look after them and see them, but he'd also had compassion to give them the true Dhamma teaching when they're ill. And he'd say things like, well, there's only two outcomes here, Venerable. You're either going to get better or you're going to die. Because that's the truth, isn't it? You get ill, you either recover or you die. And if you don't die of one thing, you'll die of another, because that's the nature of a body. It doesn't last forever. So we need that. We need the compassion and the wisdom of the Buddha sometimes to remind us, bring us back down to earth, to accepting this body is limited, doesn't last forever. And the result of that kind of understanding is insecurities and worries and anxieties start to subside. We find more peace. And the important thing is you realize you go beyond just seeing your body as yourself and yourself as your body, but you're seeing the body is more like a vehicle, like a car or something that you use while you have it through life, but then you have to let it go at the end. When it gets sick and dies, you have no choice, you let it go. But while you've got it, use it. Use it to do good. Use it to practice. Use it to do useful, beneficial things in the world. But don't get lost in it, because it's not really yours to own. And you keep reflecting on that, and this grounds you in reality. You know, the insecurities, the anxieties start to fade away. And the same with our loved ones. Like, if you have a loved one, a parent or an uncle, or auntie, or somebody who's getting older or sick, because of our delusion, we identify with the body, our body, their body as self. So then when they're sick and you're looking at them and see that they're ill, they don't look so good, they're displaying their symptoms, whatever, we tend to say, oh, how bad it is they're sick. And of course, it's not pleasant, and there may be some pain and discomfort, but that person you're looking at is more than just the body. We tend to stop there in our viewing, way that we view a person. We just say, if the body's sick, that's the end of the story. But the sickness of a person doesn't take away the goodness of a person that lies behind, or more deeply in their consciousness, in their mind. So the body can be sick, but the mind doesn't have to be sick. And all the good that that person has done is still with them. The knowledge, the skills, the wholesome, skillful qualities of that person are still there intact, even though physically the body may be fading, ill, damaged, getting old, getting sick, dying. The goodness of the person doesn't have to die. It doesn't die because it's beyond it. Mind and body are separate things, and this is what meditation teaches you and shows you every day. So when you see the person sick in bed, in a hospital bed or at home, true, they're undergoing pain and suffering because of that illness, and we have to help them in whatever way we can. But always come back to the fact that the goodness of that person is still there intact. And just because the body is fading and it will die, doesn't mean that goodness will fade. You can still remember that goodness, recollect the goodness, focus on the goodness of the person beyond the conditions of the body. So they're not just their body, they're also their mind. And the good karma we make is stored in the mind, it's not stored in the body. The body just goes back to the elements. The mind goes on, the mind doesn't die.
Dear Ajahn, should we practice contemplation of the 32 parts of the body to attain samadhi, or should we attain samadhi first and then contemplate the 32 parts?
Well, it's not one or the other. The more we practice the Buddhist path, training body, speech and mind, developing mindfulness, developing insight, developing meditation techniques, developing wisdom and insight, the more you see these qualities, say like mindfulness, samadhi, wisdom, are developing together, because we only have the one mind. So partly these things are determined by character, your personal character and your karma. So some people find that, say, they can make the body and the meditation on the parts of the body, say the 32 parts of the body, for example, their main meditation object. From day one they can sit down and they find that absorbing, brings them a sense of peace, clarity. They can focus on the body as a meditation from day one. Many other people find that difficult. It's very difficult to stay focused on your body, whether it's going through the 32 parts or contemplating as a corpse or the 4 elements. To start off with, that's quite beyond them. They can't stay with that. So they need to find another meditation object to calm them down and bring the mindfulness up first. This is why we practice mindfulness of breathing, meditation on kindness, compassion, recollection of the Buddha. We have a number of different meditation techniques we can experiment with and try as a way to bring up a state of calm mindfulness and use that to go on and further contemplate the body. So you can experiment with this and see what works. And even one person can, at different times, sometimes we find different things work. So sometimes we do just contemplate the body, other times we leave our contemplation of the body and focus maybe on the mind or the mindfulness of breathing or recollection of the Buddha or metta. Especially if you're meditating every day, developing this practice on a daily basis, you'll find different days things go differently because you're just working with the one mind and different attachments, desires, mental kilesas, defilements come up at different times. So sometimes you have to vary your approach. But if you want a sort of a general guideline, well, generally we say develop a state of calm mindfulness where your mindfulness is continuous, your mind has become settled, it's still, it's quiet, it's at peace, it's content within itself. Whatever meditation technique helps you to do that, do it. Once you're more calm, then if you're not sure what to do next, this is a question many meditators have, what do I do once I'm peaceful? Turn to contemplate the body. And one way we do this is to go through the 32 parts. We chanted it this evening. When you become a Buddhist monk, you're given the first 5 of those 32 parts. Kesa, Loma, Nakadanta, Tacho, as part of the ordination procedure, and that shows how important they are from the Buddha's point of view. He wanted to teach us to meditate on the body regularly, to see that it is a combination of different parts which are made from different elements, and none of these are a self. They're all parts of nature which come together, and we call it a human being, a body, okay, but it's actually, there's no personal being in those parts. There's no abiding essence or lasting self in any of those parts. So one way to develop that insight is to run through the 32 parts one by one, visualize them, recite them, look at your body from the inside, become aware of where those parts are, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin. Go through them. And as you're doing that in the initial stages, after a while you might find there's one particular body part which grabs your attention and holds your attention more than others. And you can maybe visualize it very well, hold your mind's attention on that part of the body, the sensation of it, the visual image of it, and then also some of the reflections on it. Say, for example, hair of the head. You might become quite used to visualizing it, individual hairs, groups of hair, looking at hair, what happens to hair? Well, it gets longer every day. Why? Because it's dead blood cells, protein cells coming out through the pores of the skin. That's what hair is, it's dead stuff. So when you're calm, when you're mindful, you can do this. Normally you might not be able to do this because you're busy with other things, but when you are calm, maybe do this. Reflect, hair is just dead cells. That's why when you cut your hair, it doesn't hurt, because they're dead already. So you're looking at your hair in the mirror, or you're holding it if you've got long hair, you're holding dead stuff. So just think how much money, time, energy we invest in dead stuff. We shape our hair, cut it, spend a lot of money. No offense to hairdressers, hairdressers have to earn a living, I know, but we spend a lot of money styling it, washing it, dyeing it, shaping it. I was a layperson once, so I know that millions of dollars all over the world is spent on hairdressing every day. Then in lockdown, when we can't go to the hairdresser, some people are getting stressed because they can't do their hair, so they're ashamed to go out of the house because they can't do their hair. We get so attached to hair, but what is hair? It's just dead stuff. It's impermanent. You cut it, once you cut it, it goes to the floor, you don't like it, you don't want it. Nobody wants hair once it's cut, unless it's from an arahant, and then people come along and collect it up. But normally you don't want hair, you throw it away. Why is that? When it's on our head, it's ours, we love it, we want it, we shape it, we attach to it, we identify with it, we impress others with it, we're impressed by others' hair. It's a big thing, isn't it? As soon as it's on the floor, don't want it, nothing to do with me, it's not self. We can see not self when it's on the floor. Why, when it's up here, is it self? What's the difference? It's just one snip and it's on the floor. It's also unpleasant in the sense it's always getting greasy, smelly. The most beautiful hair does get greasy and smelly after a while if you don't wash it. If it drops out into your food, you don't like that. If you go to a restaurant and they serve you a plate of food with somebody's hair in it, you send it back, get all upset. That's just hair. So there's a lot to reflect on here. So you can do it in both ways. You can reflect in a very ordinary way, just through your day, on the parts of the body, how they're unattractive, how they're conditioned, they're changing, they're growing, they're aging, they're changing, affected by different factors all the time. So quite in an ordinary way, you cut your nails, just reflect, nails are impermanent, you let your nails go. Your body, the way it looks, the way it feels, it's hungry, it's full, it's cold, it's hot. You can reflect on the changing nature of your body every day in a very ordinary way. But then also, when you're meditating and your mind becomes calm, still, then you can reflect on your body and observe it in a much more detailed way. And so many meditators do get the experience where once the mind is calm, sometimes they'll have their own vision or insight arising into their body and seeing it more from this place of dispassion, disenchantment, detachment, where they're seeing the body now in a new light. And they're saying, well, there's this body here, but it doesn't really feel like my body, it's just a body without really an owner. It's more like part of nature, the elements of nature. And that's a very common insight that will arise as you progress in that meditation. And sometimes people have very powerful insights. Sometimes you hear, usually monks and nuns, but sometimes lay people as well, you hear people have a vision, seeing themselves as a corpse. It's like, one day I'm going to become a corpse. That's what I'll look like. This body is something I'll have to discard. And that sense of no longer identifying so strongly with the body as a self arises then, a sense of detached awareness towards the body. That's quite common. So in the time of the Buddha, one of the well-known monks, Yasa, was one of the first disciples of the Buddha, came from a wealthy family, had every kind of pleasure, good food, good music, good clothes. His parents really loved him and they spoiled him. They didn't want him to go anywhere near the Buddha or become a monk or anything like that. They wanted him to look after the family business, look after the wealth and the property of the family. So they're always trying to distract him with girls and parties and good food and music and sport and all this, entertainments. But he started to get bored with it as a part of his karma from past lives. He'd been meditating a lot. So one night they had a party and everyone gradually got drunk and tired and they're all sleeping, and he woke up and he saw all the women sort of asleep, 3 a.m. Some of them were dribbling, some of them were snoring. Probably the men as well. Maybe the men look worse than the women, I don't know. But anyway, he saw the women because he's attracted to them normally, and then he saw, they don't look so good anymore. He had this really deep sense of weariness arise. And they said this was the result of past lives where he'd been meditating on the body, contemplating the impermanent, unattractive nature of the body. So that perception came through very clearly for him at that time. 3 a.m, his mind, instead of being drunk or intoxicated, it becomes very clear and mindful. And he said, "Oh, I'm so tired and weary of the lay life." And he left home. He went wandering. He said, "I'm going to find a teacher." So he just went wandering, not sure who he'd find or who he'd meet, but lo and behold, he met the Buddha. And not long after that, he practiced, he became enlightened. And he'd have lots of visions of the unattractiveness of the body, his body, the body of others, seeing it from different angles, the perception of the impermanence and the unattractiveness, what we call the asupa sanya, the perception of unattractiveness or repulsiveness of the body became very clear for him. And they say part of that was because in a previous life, as an act of kindness and charity, he had a group of friends and they'd go to charnel grounds, cemeteries, where people had no relatives or their relatives had no money to do a funeral. They would just get dumped. Bodies would get dumped, which unfortunately still happens sometimes in the world in poorer areas. Bodies get dumped, no funeral is performed, they're just dumped or buried in the forest, in the countryside. So this group of friends, they would go and they would dig up, collect up the bones, the corpses, and perform funerals for them as an act of compassion, that believing that, a good funeral can help the soul, the consciousness of that being be reborn in a good place, maybe, sharing merits with them. So out of an act of compassion, he got quite used to dealing with corpses. You could say it's like a sort of charitable group of undertakers who go and collect the corpses, perform a proper funeral for them, give them dignity, honour, because no one else was doing that. So he developed a very strong connection with the human body, contemplating it as corpse. Those images seemed to come through in his last life when he became enlightened. So he was always seeing the body as a corpse. So this is sometimes when the mind becomes very peaceful, we see the true nature of the body, that it's impermanent, it's suffering, and it's unattractive, and it's destined to die. What sees that is the mind. Your real refuge is your mind, the well-trained mind in mindfulness, insight, that sees anicca, dukkha, anatta in this body. At least a letting go of the body, letting go of that identification and the false expectations and the intoxication with the body that we normally have. That drops away and the mind is left peaceful with clear insight into the nature of the body. So do persist with this contemplation of the body, the 32 parts, the 4 elements. It's not easy, but go gently, and sometimes you'll find when your mind is peaceful, you can do it quite continuously for a while, and you might develop some strong insight. Do continue with it if you can. That was the last question. So seems we've come to the end of our Q&A session tonight. So if I've said anything useful to you, that's I hope you can take that away, contemplate it. We wish you all the best. We're all in Melbourne here. We're coming out of lockdown, so the weather is warming up. Hopefully people are feeling more relaxed and can go about their business. But we do have to keep practicing, and whether there's coronavirus or not, the world is still a place of impermanence, dukkha, and it's a place we don't own it. We don't own this world and the things of this world. So if we keep coming back to the Dhamma, this will help brighten our mind and bring us true insight. So for tonight, we wish you all insight into the Dhamma, and may the blessings of the Triple Gem guide you and protect you.
Handamayang Dhammakataya sadhu karang dadamase sadhu sadhu.